Hello again, everybody, and thank you for bearing with us there. We are very, very shortly going to go live with a presentation from Kitchi at Deutsche Bank. So Kitchi is the VP of Investment Banking and give you a real glimpse into her career and life at Deutsche Bank. So Kitchi, thank you so much for joining us. I'll hand over to you.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. So I'm here to talk about DB, what it's like to be with DB, and what it is to be a female in finance in DB. Just a brief. I think I'll just backtrack a little bit and just give you a brief background about what it is in banking, what banks do, what we essentially do. DB is a financial service. It provides products and services on lending money, borrowing, allowing people to borrow money. It takes in deposits. Essentially, it helps the economy to move money around. So banking is an essential part of our economy in the global services. And so that's who we are. We are a German bank. We are present in 59 countries at the moment. We have about 1.3 trillion wealth of clients. And again, DB is based in Germany, so that would be our home market. And as obviously, we would be number one in Germany. Further to that, DB has been established in 1870, so that's really at the core of one of our strengths, being one of the oldest banks in the world. DB has essentially four what we'd call main divisions. Each of this division is linked with each other and helps each other in building what DB is. We have the corporate bank, which is more focused on a lot of the transaction banking services, a lot of deposit taking, a lot of looking after smaller clients, not necessarily smaller clients, but a lot of the day-to-day activities of our clients. And then where I belong to is the investment bank. We look after or more focused on fixed income. We do a lot of origination and advisory services. And then we have also the private bank and the asset management arm, which deals with more specific items or say very wealthy clients. That's where most of your private and asset management division looks after. At the core of DB is our values and beliefs. And I'll just briefly run through these things, right? So integrity being trustworthy. So in the bank generally, it's very, very important that your clients and the people that put their money into you, put their investments, they do trust you. So at the very heart of every bank, integrity is very important. Another value or another core belief that we have is the sustainable performance. So it can't be just looking at short-term goals for our clients. We always have to look at long-term and sustainable um, performance that when we lend say money to our clients, it can't just be for something that will patch things. It has to be more for long term and more beneficial to everyone, economy, the country, whatever it is, the environment, whatever it is. And clients are the center of our commitment. But in saying that, even within DB, say you're not a client facing individual or client, you're not a banker who faces clients, your client would be another person within DB. So you have a responsibility and ensure that you're helping each other out. Another pillar of our values is innovation. We believe in change. So every so often we understand and review that things change and we look at what we're doing, make sure we're adapting to all of those changes. Um, especially now with how technology is, right? I could say I'm quite old already, but even with that one, we adapt. DB always, I would say, puts in. If you look at how we look at our budget, there's always a part of our budget that's earmarked for innovation. Discipline, it's making sure we do things right, but at the same time, we are allowed to make mistakes, but we should be learning from our mistakes. And lastly, partnership. This, I think, is the not not one is more important than the other, but I'd say partnership. It's about making sure that we accept each other's individualities and we celebrate that one. Um, Within DB, we are very proud of our diversity and inclusion. So, as I've mentioned earlier, we're present in about 60 countries. Could imagine how many different um, groups there are, how many different cultures, how many different nationalities there are within DB. Um, we have a lot of programs for women. Um, there's a bank commitment with respect to how many women should be in certain positions. At the management board level, I think there's a commitment by 2025 that there should be about 20% of women in our management board. So we understand that in everything that we do, we have to be diverse and we have to celebrate our differences. Um, just briefly, just to show you that DB, which I should be very proud of, DB is a top employer here in the UK, one of the top employers here in the UK for women. It's been named as a choice of the bank in women choice of the bank in Germany. And we have in APAC we have the most number of females in our managing director and director positions. And this is where I think I'd really like to focus on. This would be more or less my last bit, but this is where I'd like to share with you my experience being with DB. Um, These are the four pillars that DB would ask their employees. And from my experience, all of this, I think DB has sticked for me. If I go back in time, once upon a time, I've started my career in a local bank in the Philippines. I've worked there for about 10 years and then moved to DB. When I've moved to DB, that's a DB office in Manila. And I could definitely say from my experience, when you talk about career possibilities, I've stayed in Manila for another 5 years when I was there. But during that time, I've been going back here and forth. And that's because my manager, for one, um, have acknowledged might not be the right term, but have seen my potential. And she's asked me if I wanted to move, wanted to see things, wanted to progress my career. And that's again because you have a manager who's very supportive, your career progression, for one, it's just limitless almost. And at the same time, at that point in time, I did ask. So 5 years ago, I've moved here to the UK when I've asked. So again, another jump for my career. Um, I couldn't say anything more about the inclusive culture aside from really, I am a good case in point. I am from Manila. Um, oh, and speaking of that one, also, when I worked with a local bank, it's more, again, this is a lot of Filipinos in there. And when I first started with DB, what really amazed me, again, I might be too naive, but at that point in time, that really amazed me was that you are working with different colleagues around the world. There's so many differing views, so many differing opinions, and at the same time, people respected your opinion too. Um, they would, yes, you may not agree on everything, but because there's so many other views and discussions around you, you are able to learn a lot of things. And this ties back to collaborative working. Again, because there's no there may be problems and there's always a right solution to a problem. But getting there, it's always open in DB. You're allowed to work in your own style. You're allowed to voice your opinions. You're allowed to change things. And a lot of the times that's very, very much celebrated. Um, and another thing also to think about in DB is our ability to innovate. I know at this stage and at this point, there's a lot of changes in society. There's a lot of technological changes and all that. And DB, honestly, I couldn't say we are in the forefront of it, but we are definitely moving towards it. We are investing significantly in all of these technologies, innovating, and we allow everyone to talk about it, allow everyone to share their opinions, their views. um you are not, say, you're a woman, people don't wouldn't stop you. It doesn't matter what you think, what you say, especially if it's about making the bank better. um because it's a safe, always a safe environment for you. So yeah, that just wraps about my chat. Um, and I'm happy for any questions.
Amazing, Kitchi. Thank you so much. It's particularly interesting, I think, hearing your story and your experiences and the journey that you've been on to get to where you are today. And I'm sure that will really inspire lots of people listening. So thank you. That was brilliant. And just to let you all know that Kitchi's slides and everything will be available in kind of post-event communications. We've had loads of questions through, so I hope that's all okay, Kitchi. And we've had people kind of voting for their favourite questions as well. So some really, really interesting ones coming through. Let's start with the application process questions, then we can go a bit more into detail on the other ones. Obviously, sometimes the application process can be varied in terms of length, but there was a question around how to stay motivated. So if you don't know if you've quite made it through yet, or how do you stay motivated throughout that process? I don't know if that's something you can share any light on for us.
Again, I'll share this from my experience, right? And within DB, you're allowed to, well, my experience within DB is you're allowed to move between divisions and you apply for that too. And as with respect to your question as to staying motivated, because sometimes it takes a while, sometimes it's shorter. It depends exactly as to what the actual role is. But one is, if there's a chance for you to ask a question, meaning how long will this take really, be honest about it. I don't really see any issue as to them taking offense as to asking. Number two, you just have to understand sometimes that there are certain roles that takes a while.
Yeah.
There are certain roles that just really, they have to do a lot more checks and confirm and all that just chill for a bit. I suppose it's the best answer. Relax.
Yeah.
Don't worry too much. Don't overthink it. Because the more you overthink it, the more you panic in your head and all that. So just things will come. Yeah.
Yeah, love that. There's that saying, isn't there? Trust the process.
Exactly.
So just kind of go with it.
Yeah, and I think the best one advice I'd say is ask them how long it would really take, so that in your head you know, more or less, I'll wait for 3 weeks, for a month, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
There's no harm in asking.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then I guess then your expectations are managed in terms of when you'll hear back. So yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for that question. I think it's hard sometimes when you're waiting a little while, but I think that's really, really good advice, Kitchi. So thank you. Bethany Bentley, thanks for your question. This is one I'm hoping you can shed some light on, Kitchi, around work-life balance. So working hours. Can you give us any information or insight on that?
That's an interesting one. Work-life balance. Honest, again, based from my experience, you choose it. You define your work-life balance. Your bosses might be very. I had a boss who's very, very into the work. It's like 24/7. She's just working. But I wanted the work-life balance. I have kids. I want to be able to sit in our sofa at the end of the day at 6 o'clock. And as long as you discuss that with your manager, and she knows I'm not slacking during the day when I needed to work, I deliver what I need to deliver. DB promotes work-life balance. Sometimes they even insist on you. There's a lot of programs in DB that allows you to do it, and your managers again. Again, I'll go back to the asking bit, because that's one thing I've really learned throughout my career, is that if you ask and say what you think and feel, people are very helpful around you. They're very supportive. So if I wanted to work 24/7, I could do that easily. And for me, that might be my work-life balance, because that's my my life also too. But at the same time, if I tell them, wait, I'll stop already, it's not an issue at all.
Okay, that's really interesting actually. Like some people do just want to work like that, and that is their work-life balance, but setting those boundaries. If you do want to just be on the sofa by 6, then that's okay too. Just have that conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, awesome. Now a few people that are kind of listening in at the moment are obviously just starting out in their careers and starting out in deciding about financial services. So one of the questions we had was, what advice would you give to someone that was just starting out in financial services?
Oh, that got me excited a bit. Well, for me, I did not, when I was in school, I didn't know what course I'd take. I'm not a graduate of accounting. I don't know anything about finance at all. And at that point in time, I said, wait, I'm not going to do finance because I don't know anything. And then lo and behold, I went to banking. I got a job in banking. But at that time, and just for background, I graduated in math. So I had no background at all aside from a plus and a minus, and that's it. But what really I found early on, and I think a good advice is, I found a mentor.
Yeah.
Try to find a mentor who will give you and who will listen to what you're thinking and feeling, and who will help you navigate. Because at that stage, what the hell do I know about things? When you start your career, you just don't, sometimes you don't know what you want to do. You don't know what the expectations are. By the time I had a professor who was sort of my mentor, and he was helping me navigate my thoughts around what I want to do. He And again, you don't have to say yes to everything, but once you find your spot and you enjoyed it, it's very important that you enjoy what you're doing. Then you start building it and building it and building it, and then eventually I ended up in finance.
Okay, that's super interesting. How did you go about kind of finding that mentor?
Again, I'll go back to the asking bit.
Mm-hmm.
I've never really, and if I go back to 10, 20 years ago, I think I'll tell myself to always ask. There's no harm in asking. My mentor just so happens to be one of the professors I had in college. And then, you'll have to write an essay, and he liked my essay. So we had a chat, and then that's essentially how it ended. But looking back, I thought, if I did ask from the onset, if I really knew about mentorship, and if I wasn't too shy in asking, I could have gotten more out of it. I could have been able to find maybe someone who does finance at that point in time. I don't know. But yeah, it just so happens. Well, I think I was just lucky that my teacher then, my professor then, like what I've written, and then he helped me out, that sort of thing. But yeah, you could always ask your professors. I tell you, they're very helpful.
Yeah, Awesome, that's great. Keep the questions coming in. We've got about 10 more minutes or so for questions. There's some amazing ones here, Kitchi. I think you're going to get excited by some of these. There's one from Amy around opportunities to grow and develop. But more specifically, like, does it matter how long you've been there to feel like you're developing and growing? And also, are there any opportunities to study and become accredited with boards? So I guess that's almost two questions around development and progression from Amy. So thank you for that, Amy.
In terms of career progression, definitely there is a career progression. There is always room. The thing I really like about DB, and I'm being very loyal to DB, is that because it's such a massive company, it's a massive financial services company, you have a lot of opportunities if you want it and if you look for it. So that's another piece of advice I'd say, is that you look for things that you want to do, because not everything will be handed to you. Sorry, in terms of opportunities for studying, we do support, and as far as I know, we do. At least within our group, I know we do. For those especially who would like to pursue not other careers, but other opportunities in studying, they do support that. I'm not 100% sure in terms of exactly the mechanics of it, so
Sure.
HR would be the best person to talk about that. And sorry, I forgot what I was going to say, but yeah.
No, that was great. Yeah, that you definitely answered that. So definitely opportunities to progress, lots of programs for that, and also you do support additional learning and different additional boards. Amy, if you want to find any specifics about that, head to the employer booth afterwards, and we can get some specifics on those boards and those accreditations. There's a couple of questions as well around some struggles or feeling daunted about things. I think there's one specific about being a woman, and I think because of the nature of today, let's have a conversation about that. So the specific question is, have there ever been times where you felt daunted about applying for a role or an opportunity due to being a woman? And if so, how were you able to overcome this? Could you give us some advice?
Yeah, yes, there was one role. So I'll just tell you about my story. So there was one role. I was here for an assignment for about 6 months. That role I really liked. And I went to the managing director. He told me, "Oh, you're doing a good job, blah, 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 happy days. But I have to go back to Manila." And I told him, that was just really what came out of me. Thank you very much. Because one, I felt like the role's too big for me. Number two, everyone I'm working with were men. They're so aggressive. They really are. And then he took me in his room and he sat me down, said, "Look, you're fit for the role, but you need to ask." I think what the problem is, I always needed to be prepared 80-90% of the time before I go and ask for me to have the role. And then when he said, "You're already there, you just need a bit boost of confidence. You just need to ask and you will have the role. You can come back here in 6 months' time." Which I did. I did ask him when I went back to Manila. I sent him an email because I couldn't do it in person because I was so scared. So I thought maybe I'll just drop in an email. At least it's not in person. But the thing is, the message there is that he actually was just waiting for me to ask again and again, because I felt like I have to be 90%. The thing is, sometimes you need to have a support group around you who will tell you, actually, you can do it. You're there already. Someone who would push you. Your friends, maybe, your parents, maybe, who would push you and tell you and remind you that actually you could do it. You don't really have to be there 100% of the solve everything. Think about what they're thinking. You don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Just 50% of the way, you're done.
I love that advice. It seems there's a bit of a theme here between asking and just putting yourself out there, asking the question. If you've got doubts, if you're only 80% there, other people will think you're 100% of the way. So that's how to overcome it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of, again, I've been banging on about that. Ask, because the worst thing that they could do is say no.
Yeah.
Right. But the best thing that they could do is say yes to you. And you have every opportunity for that. You're opening your door.
Amazing. And a student has also specifically asked around Deutsche Bank, do you feel like it's a safe and supportive place for females to start their career from your experience?
From my experience, it definitely is. Again, as I told you, a lot of my colleagues were male. Initially, especially when I moved here, initially I was so scared. I felt so out of my depth. I don't understand what they're doing. I don't understand what they're saying. It's like, what? But they are very, very supportive of female. I have been given a lot of, aside from asking, people recognize your potential. So they will give you every opportunity that they can give you. And there's a lot in DB. And if you also look for it, there's a lot in DB. If I want to study, if I want to train, all that, it's there.
Yeah.
I just have to look for it.
Amazing. And Naomi's connected with you. Thanks for your question, Naomi, on using maths as your within your career. So Naomi's asked specifically, how do you use maths in your career, and how would it compare to like your degree work when you were doing maths versus how you use maths now?
That was interesting. So I had my master's in math, thinking I wanted to teach then. But I've never really, and well, just to give you a side note, by the way, I've not ever been very good at math. Because again, at that point in time, I don't know what to do. And I've copied my classmates, which is applying for. So I ended up in math. And then I ended up in finance. And where I'm using it, it's the skill I think that I've learned rather than the technicalities, rather than the textbook math thing, but it's the skill as to how I organize my thoughts. It's the skill when I've learned in my math degree as to how you put things together. How we have to do presentations. How does that pan out? It's the skill that I've learned in college. I think you'd call it here, uni here. Yeah, it's that skill that I've learned from my maths degree that I've passed on to my finance role now.
Oh, amazing. Thanks for that insight. There's a couple of questions specifically around diversity and inclusion, and I know you mentioned that as one of your pillars, but one of the points was, do you find working with so many different colleagues and points of view one of the best parts of your job? That was one of the questions. And then there was a specific question around LGBTQ plus commitments. I don't know if you know the specifics on that, but if you could just give us a general answer to those questions, that'd be great.
The first one as to,
do you find working with so many different colleagues and points of view the best part of your job?
Oh yes. Initially, I have to be honest. Initially, I was so daunted because I came from a local bank in the Philippines, right? And then it was, again, it's a local bank, so all of you are Filipinos, right? And then you've moved on to an international bank where there's just too many different cultures and all that. But at the same time, when I got through that sort of hurdle, and there's just too many different things, and it sort of opened my world.
Yeah,
it really did. Yes, you may not agree all the time, and then some cultures are very aggressive, some cultures are very passive. It's just a different thing, and then you find the middle ground, and you think of it as a challenge for you to pull them all together. I currently work with a German team, the team here, the US, and guys in India. So that's essentially my team at the moment. And it's always fun that when you hear them talk about their life, talk about differences, when you discuss their opinions, it's so different, and it's a challenge for you to bring it together. And at the end of the day, it's all good fun. In terms of LGBTQI, yes, there is a specific, as far as I'm aware, there are specific things within DB. And again, maybe HR might be able to better answer that. But I believe, yes, because I remember back then we always celebrated that. There's specific week or programs or events that they do.
Yeah, amazing. All right, we've only got 1 minute, so I feel like we should probably wrap up. But there's a couple of questions we haven't answered, so I just want to let everybody know anything specific that has been asked around the recruitment process or anything that hasn't been answered. Deutsche Bank are going to be in the employer booths. I think there's 15 minutes now between now and the next presentation, so feel free to send those questions across and we'll make sure we'll get answered. And just thank you so much, Kitchi. You've been amazing. I think you were really honest and passionate, and it's so nice to hear your journey. Esther's actually just said you had previously mentioned that you were not initially considering a role in the financial field, and that's really connected with me because she's in the exact same place. So hopefully, Esther, by the end of today, you'll make that decision. You'll have a good think. So thanks again, Kitchi, for your presentation. Send them all around, and yeah, enjoy the rest of the day, everybody.
Enjoy. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.